Hi people, welcome back here again as always, and as usual. I'm going to briefly or quickly do a geolocation chart again. So a chart, the chart conveying the qualities of a nation, and it's England's turn. You can see that in the top left corner, geolocation England. So yeah, let's get started. Now, the first house is ruled by Cancer and therefore by the moon. And the first house indicates England's geographical structure. Before I continue, let me state that I am covering strictly England and not the UK as a whole. So exclude Scotland, both Ireland and Wales. Only England, only England. So yeah, the first house indicates that England is a wet country, as in it's wet. Moist climate, a moist environment overall, and the overall geographical outline compared to the average country in the world is average, albeit slightly, very slightly below average. That's why this house is, instead of the usual 30 degrees, it is 27 degrees. Again, that's why it's ruled by Cancer. The moon ruling the geographical outline of England stands for all the properties that the moon conveys or bestows within an overall terrestrial context. So again, moisture, wetness, those are the things that signify England, and anyone that knows England knows that this is obviously correct. Moving on, again, before I move on, of course that's not all, and that doesn't mean that literally it's like that non-stop, but it is it's the norm, let me just put it that way, for England. Again, the saying "it always rains in England" or "almost always rains in England" is something that people are familiar with. Moving on, second house stands for England's economy. It's ruled by the sun, specifically Leo. Stands for the fact that England has, throughout its existence, has had a strong, well above average, stable and consistent economy compared to the rest of the world. A consistently strong economy. That's why it's ruled by Leo. The mere fact that England has one of the most high value currencies in the world, the GBP, the pound, speaks for itself, although that extends to Great Britain as a whole, and not just England, but you know what I mean. England has a great economy, classically, conventionally speaking, throughout its existence. They have had so. Juno is in Virgo. This is Juno, the celestial body, asteroid Juno, or whatever it may be, in a manner of speaking, is in Virgo. Stands for the fact that the economy is up to a minor extent, what contributes up to a minor extent to the strong economy of England stands for the tight-knit relationships, statistically tight-knit relationships that employers and employees have with each other. There is a good bond in terms of individual on the working floor. There is a good understanding between the two aforementioned parties, which stimulates and boosts the economy or contributes to doing so. And the third house is also ruled by Virgo, and Juno is also conjunct the third house, and Lilith is also in Virgo there. The celestial body Lilith. The third house being ruled by Virgo stands for the fact that daily life is comprised or made up of work in England. I already mentioned what Juno is about, and that's why it's also aspect to the third house. Now Lilith here stands for the fact that there are issues regarding employment. The typical things you can expect to have to deal with when it comes to employment in England or being part of the labor market. Specifically, how do I put this? That's why Lilith is opposed both Neptune at its strongest in Pisces and Mars also in Pisces in the 9th house, obviously opposing the 3rd house. All of this simply stands for the fact that, again, there are issues, the typical conventional issues you might expect. Employers, for example, not adhering to workplace safety regulations, things that you can chalk up to corruption and mismanagement that is present up to relatively speaking, considerable extent. It's minor when looking at things as a whole, when looking at the big picture, but within England's context, it still goes a long way. Okay, especially pertaining to the average working individual. The fourth house is ruled by Libra, and the moon is also there in Libra alongside the Earth, which is in Scorpio. Stands for the fact that most English households in general overall are peaceful. And the ones that are the peacekeepers and peacemakers and vice versa are women. The women are the one running the household. Bear in mind, running strictly metaphorically, in the sense that they are the peacekeepers and the peacemakers, and vice versa. Like I said, they're the ones that are keeping the peace. They're the happy homemakers. They're right next to the Earth, like I said, in Scorpio, which stands for the fact that most households in England wish that they had more disposable income, that they had more money to spend, especially women, to run the household more efficiently from a material perspective. The fifth house is ruled by Scorpio, which stands for the fact that the entertainment industry in England overall is dominated by spending money, okay, by spending material resources. Examples that I can give are betting and wagering, anything from sports betting to regular betting, casinos, you name it. Anything that you do for fun in England, okay, is highly likely to have an option to bet or wager. I'll elaborate more on this specifically when I reach the 11th house. And you have got thingy there, Pallas there. Pallas is in Sagittarius, the asteroid Pallas in Sagittarius going retrograde, which stands for the fact that that you have foreigners up to a minor extent that are involved here, but more in a negative way. Again, you can take that statement at face value and make of it what you want, but it's self-explanatory. For the rest, the fifth house also obviously indicates childbirth, having children, and romance and whatnot, which stands for the fact that romance is also partially driven by financial resources, and having children is also in part motivated or initiated or revolves around that, but only in part. Scorpio ruling here is primarily dominantly hinting at or referring to the aforementioned entertainment market. The sixth house is ruled by Sagittarius, with the pot of fortune in it in Capricorn conjunct the seventh house. The sixth house being there stands for the fact that England has an abundant labor market, and the pot of fortune there in Capricorn stands for the fact that employers and authoritarian figures, CEOs of companies and whatnot, big businesses are the ones that are just any type of business overall as a collective whole is the one that stimulates the labor market so heavily. And like I already mentioned, in the second house with Juno, and to a lesser extent the third house as a whole, the pot of fortune being conjunct the seventh house. And while I'm talking about the seventh house, while we're at it, the seventh house being ruled by Capricorn, with Ceres also conjunct the seventh house, stands for opposing the ascendant, of course. So the descendant stands for the fact that, again, like I said with Juno, employers and employees have a tight-knit relationship compared to other countries, an above average high bond between the two, that also mounts, generally speaking, to any type of relationship, whether it be at a friendship level or relationship or otherwise, again, compared to other countries. So simply put, bosses, they either are friends with their employees, or they engage in romantic or otherwise relationships with their employees. there is a tightness, there is a close bond between the two aforementioned parties, like Juno already indicated, and that's what drives, that's what substantially stimulates or provides the labor market of its quality. Pluto is in Aquarius in the 7th house, which stands for the aforementioned, which stands for the fact that relationships between people are often initiated by one or more parties in said relationship being able to provide the other one with benefits in some way, shape, or form. Anything. Think of the classical relationship between a man and a woman, where a woman wants resources and she wants all the benefits that a man can provide her with in exchange for whatever she has to offer. So transactional, but specifically emphasis laid on anything that resembles power. That's what Pluto stands for. The 8th house is ruled by Aquarius, doesn't really stand for a lot. The 8th house stands for financial institutions and whatnot. And Aquarius simply stands for them catering to the public at large. Think of banks, think of payment processing companies, think of any company that deals with the money from other individuals, so third parties. It simply mirrors the 2nd house. The 9th house, you've got Saturn, Mars, and Neptune in Pisces there. I already explained in part at least what Mars and Neptune opposing Lilith, what it stood for. Saturn adds to that. The 9th house stands for politics. It stands for the educational system and related, and foreign policy in England. And all of these planets in Pisces, the one being the most afflicted is Saturn, whereas the strongest is Neptune. Stands for the fact that the aforementioned sectors in English society are conventionally prone to corruption or outright corrupt, as well as male-oriented, as in the leading individuals in these aforementioned sectors use their power and influence for their own personal benefit, all the while bending the rule of law on more than one occasion. The 10th house, dealing with authoritarianism, is ruled by Aries. And you've got Mercury there going retrograde, also in Aries, ditto with Venus minus the retrograde, and the Sun in Taurus. Now, all of this, all of that Aries influence stands for the fact that all the authoritarian figures in English society, think of judges, the police, lawyers, anyone that is quote-unquote in charge in society, they act on impulse more, and they're not graceful about it. That's what Venus says, and Mercury as well. The decisions they make are based more on aggressive impulse, impulsive decisions, and enforcing them in an aggressive manner. That's where aggression comes into play, rather than doing things based on logic and reason. And last but not least, the Sun being there in Taurus stands for the fact that their decisions are largely fueled by income, the desire for money, just wealth, material resources overall. The 11th house is ruled by Taurus, and you've got Uranus and Jupiter, they're both in Taurus. All of this stands for the fact that the public at large in England, so most English people, focus on garnering an income. They focus on wealth. Okay, they focus on making money and having lots of it. Especially Jupiter says that. Okay, Jupiter says a lot, and Taurus in the 11th house stands for English people. They love money and they want lots of it. Uranus being there in Taurus hints at what I said regarding the 5th house. There is English people love to engage in any form of wagering or betting where technology comes into play. So plain and simply, e-gambling, electronic gambling is wildly popular compared to other countries, and also highly advanced in this department based on demand, obviously. And that's it. Last but not least, the 12th house is ruled by Gemini, which stands for the fact that bodies of water running through England, such as the Thames and whatnot, are mundane in nature. Honestly, they're just your default cookie cutter river, if you will, within a European context as well as overall. And they are used primarily they have been used throughout England's history, the land known as England, for mundane purposes, things pertaining to daily life, and as well as commuting, so short distance traveling. And the first house, speaking of that, because these two work together, usually the 12th house indicates oceans surrounding the nation in question, if applicable, and the first house stands also for that, but for bodies of water running through it alongside the climate and what I already mentioned, its geographical outline structure. So the both of these simply say that England has a good deal of water either surrounding it or running through it, but not at such a devastating level that it's like a very small island surrounded by a vast ocean with nothing in sight in the way of neighbors and whatnot, or neighboring countries. No. It says that there is a lot of water surrounding England, but of an intermediary nature, and that England is a wet place overall. And the 12th house, again, like I said, indicates that there are rivers running through England, but that are used for mundane purposes and commuting and whatnot, but nothing huge or ginormous in size. And last but not least, the first house also says that England has a good deal of marshes and whatnot, just like I said, overall wetness. And that is it. Now I'm just going to show you some statistical data that backs up everything I've said to serve as metaphorical proof. Metaphorical in the sense that I don't need to show any proof, obviously, for anyone that's been following me, or anyone that has followed me, but still for added effect. Now, what I said regarding the first house and to a lesser extent the 12th house, weather in England, you can read this article. I'll put all of this in the description of this video. I'm not gonna read it. It's too much. I'm just going to I'm just going to cruise through the pictures for you. Yeah, you can see this. England, autumn weather in England. You can see it for yourself. Close you. Weather in England. See again. You see the wetness, the moisture. Other picture. Show other picture. See? Weather in England, dark, wet, generally speaking, classically speaking. Look, nature in England. You see what I mean? The rivers running through, small bodies of water, etc., etc. Now, economically speaking, it's hard to find data on England alone, but England is obviously part of the UK. The UK as a whole is known as one of the most economically stable countries in the world. Number 13, good rank. Here you go, job market. The UK, number 4 in a job market. Number 4, high grade job market. Bear in mind there are like 200 countries in the world, or under 200. So yeah, number 4 means that you're one of the best in the world. Now, regarding the domestic situation, the domestic piece, you can see here, map of prevalence, estimates of past year physical or sexual or both intimate partner violence among ever partnered women aged between 15 and 49 years in 2018. It simply classically indicates domestic abuse. That's what this map indicates. Median prevalence, the UK is right here. You see that the UK is super blue, indicating between 0 and 4%. The UK, so England obviously, including England, has one of the lowest cases of domestic violence compared to the rest of the world. The countries in red and slight beige, so light brown or hazel, are countries with the highest levels of domestic abuse, and the bluest countries are the ones adversely with the lowest. Now, and last but not least, as an example, the gambling. UK, total gambling gross win, 19 billion. With an area of 700 square miles, blah blah blah, population of 69 million. The UK is one of the biggest gambling nations globally. Based on the UK gambling commissions in 2021, both the online and remote betting showcased the largest sectors of the industry, with some wagers capturing 2.3% of the entire industry. The UK is one of the, England by proxy obviously is one of the biggest gambling countries in the world. And here you have it as well. La 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 la. They have a plethora of bookmakers who have been doing business in England for decades. More than 49% of UK adults gamble on different types of games. And it just goes on. So there you go, guys. You've seen it for yourself. As always, goodbye.